The Force binds all things across the galaxy, connecting every living being in an invisible web of energy. For millennia, the Sith have sought to bend this power to their will, to break the chains of mortality and claim dominion over life and death itself. But what happens when their darkest ritual succeeds beyond comprehension, when they reach across the void between realities and pull something through that was never meant to exist in a galaxy far, far away? The answer came on a night when Korriban's crimson sky turned black. Deep within the Sith Academy's forbidden sublevel, Dark Lord Sorzu's Kaas raised her arms above a blood circle inscribed with ancient Sith runes. 12 acolytes chanted in unison, their voices resonating with dark side energy that made the torches flare green. Members of the Dark Council watched from the chamber's edges, their expressions hidden behind ceremonial masks, but their anticipation palpable through the Force. "Life is a prison," Kaas intoned in the Sith language. "Death is an illusion. We call upon the darkness beyond darkness, the void that drinks light." The blood circle began to boil, reality fractured. Every Force sensitive on Korriban felt it simultaneously, a wound tearing open in existence itself, a doorway forced between dimensions that should never have connected. Several acolytes collapsed, blood streaming from their noses. One Dark Council member staggered backward, his ancient face twisted in horror. "That's not the dark side," he gasped. "That's something else entirely." Sorzu's Kaas's triumph turned to uncertainty as she sensed what approached. Her ritual was designed to reach the netherworld of the Force to claim immortality's secrets. Instead, she had reached impossibly further, touching a universe where different rules governed life and death. And something had answered. Shadow coalesced above the circle, becoming denser, more real until it took humanoid shape. Then, with a sound like tearing silk and breaking glass, he stepped through. Tall, over 2 meters, in a red coat that seemed to absorb light itself. Orange-tinted glasses concealed his eyes, but his smile was visible. Wide, sharp, filled with too many teeth. His presence radiated something the Sith had never encountered. Not dark side, not light, but a third force entirely. A hunger that had existed for centuries, fed on millions, and transcended the simple duality of life and death. Alucard stood perfectly still, head tilted as if listening. Then he laughed, a sound that started low and built until the ancient stones trembled. "Well, well, well," he said, his accent bizarre and alien to their ears. "This is unexpected. Delightful, but unexpected." His smile widened impossibly. "Which of you insects decided to pull me from my evening to this place absolutely drenched in delicious darkness?" Sorzu's Kaas straightened, calling upon the dark side to bolster her courage. "I am Dark Lord Sorzu's Kaas. You have been summoned to serve the Sith Empire. You will—" Alucard moved faster than Force-enhanced perception could follow. Suddenly, he was inches from her face, one hand resting almost gently on her throat. She found herself unable to move, unable to breathe, unable to touch the dark side that had been her constant companion. "Let's establish something immediately," the vampire purred, voice containing more menace than any scream. "I am Alucard. I have drunk the blood of millions. I have existed for centuries. I have been destroyed more times than your species has words for." His grip tightened slightly. "I serve whom I choose, and right now I'm choosing to be very, very curious about what you've dragged me into." He released her. The other Dark Council members ignited their lightsabers, red plasma blades humming with lethal intent. Alucard's attention fixed on the weapons with genuine interest. "Oh, now those are interesting. Plasma contained in electromagnetic fields?" He looked at the nearest Sith Lord, a hulking pureblood named Vindican. "Would you mind demonstrating? Preferably on me. I'm curious whether it hurts more than a blessed bayonet." Vindican lunged with master duelist precision, his lightsaber piercing Alucard's heart. The blade emerged from the vampire's back, the smell of burning flesh filling the chamber. Alucard looked down at the weapon protruding from his chest, then up at Vindican. Then he laughed harder than before. "Oh, that does hurt, magnificent! He grabbed the blade with his bare hand, flesh sizzling, and pulled himself further onto it. But you see, I've had worse, much worse, and here's the thing about pain. His eyes became visible behind those glasses for just an instant, twin crimson orbs containing something ancient and utterly alien. I've learned to love it. The shadows came alive. They peeled from the walls like living things, wrapping around the acolytes before anyone could react. The young Sith screamed as darkness held them immobile with supernatural strength. Vindican tried pulling his lightsaber free, but Alucard held it in place with one hand while reaching out with the other. His fingers brushed the Sith Lord's forehead, and Vindican went rigid as something invaded his mind. Not the Force, but something that bypassed every mental defense he possessed. Images flooded Vindican's consciousness. Battlefields soaked in blood, wars spanning centuries, a creature that had drunk life from thousands, an entity that had been bound by mystical symbols and human will but was now gloriously, terrifyingly free. Alucard released him. Vindican collapsed, whimpering. "The Force," Alucard said thoughtfully. "That's what you call it, yes? I can feel it everywhere, connecting everything." He closed his eyes. And several Sith Lords gasped as they felt the impossible, the dark side itself responding to this creature, swirling around him like recognizing kindred. "Oh yes," Alucard whispered. "I think I'm going to enjoy this place very much." Alarms blared throughout the Academy. The ritual's energy signature had been detected across Korriban, guards mobilized. The Dark Council sent emergency transmissions to the Sith Emperor on Dromund Kaas. Alucard calmly removed the lightsaber from his chest. The wound sealed instantly, flesh and fabric regenerating as if never damaged. "Lord Kaar," he said, turning back to his summoner, "you wanted immortality? The secret to eternal life?" His smile became terrible. "You found it, but I wonder if you'll survive the lesson." Chamber doors exploded inward as Sith guards poured in, weapons ready, darkside connections flaring. Alucard stood calm in the chaos, redcoat billowing despite no breeze. "Now then," the vampire said, voice carrying effortlessly, "someone explain exactly what a Sith Empire is, where I am, and most importantly," his eyes gleamed with predatory hunger, "which direction is the nearest population center? I find myself absolutely famished." The first Sith vampire had arrived in the Old Republic. The galaxy would never be the same. If you want to see more characters enter the Star Wars galaxy, smash that subscribe button and drop the name of a character you'd want to see in the comments below. The Force protects those who support this channel. The Sith guards hesitated. Their training screamed to attack, to defend the Academy against this intruder, but something primal in their hindbrain recognized what stood before them. Not a Dark Jedi, not a Sith Lord, something that existed outside the natural order entirely. Alucard's smile widened as he sensed their fear. "Oh, don't stop on my account. Please, do try to kill me. It's been at least 3 hours since someone made a proper attempt." The guard captain, a scarred human veteran of a dozen campaigns, made his decision. "Open fire!" Blaster bolts filled the chamber, brilliant red energy lancing through the air in a coordinated barrage that would have obliterated any conventional target. Alucard stood motionless as the bolts struck him, each impact punching through his body with surgical precision. Holes appeared in his chest, his shoulders, his head. The red coat became Swiss cheese, and the vampire's blood, impossibly dark, almost black, sprayed across the ancient stone floor. For 3 seconds, the guards maintained fire. For 3 seconds, they believed they had won. Then Alucard started walking forward. Each step was deliberate, casual, as if he were strolling through a garden rather than through sustained weapons fire. The holes in his body sealed as quickly as they appeared, flesh knitting together with disturbing wet sounds. Even the coat regenerated, the fabric weaving itself whole again through some extension of his supernatural regeneration. "You know what I miss about my world?" Alucard said conversationally, his voice somehow audible over the blaster fire. "The screaming. When you shoot someone there, they scream. They beg, gee." They realize in their final moments exactly how fragile mortality is. He reached the nearest guard and casually swatted the blaster from his hands. "But you, Sith, you've been taught not to fear death. How disappointing." His hand shot out, fingers wrapping around the guard's throat, but instead of crushing it, Alucard simply held the man in place, staring into his eyes with terrible focus. The guard's body went rigid, every muscle locking as something fundamental was violated. His eyes rolled back, showing only whites, and a thin trickle of blood ran from his nose. The other guards watched in horror as their comrade aged. Not rapidly, not like some force technique they'd witnessed, but visibly. His skin became sallow, his cheeks hollow, his vibrant force presence dimming like a candle guttering out. When Alucard finally released him, the guard collapsed as a withered husk, looking decades older than his actual age. "Fascinating," the vampire murmured, examining his hand as if seeing it for the first time. "Your force energy has flavor. Different from blood, but complementary, like a wine pairing." He looked at the remaining guards with renewed hunger. "Who's next?" They broke. Training and discipline couldn't withstand what they'd just witnessed. The guards scattered, fleeing toward the exits while sending panicked transmissions to every authority figure in the academy. Only the Dark Council members remained, though 2 had already disappeared, whether through cowardice or tactical retreat. Alucard neither knew nor cared. Sorza's car had recovered her composure, her connection to the dark side burning like cold fire around her. "You are powerful," she admitted, her voice steady despite what she'd witnessed. "More powerful than I anticipated. But you are alone, unfamiliar with this galaxy, and surrounded by an empire of dark-side practitioners who have mastered death in ways your primitive universe never conceived." She raised her hands, crimson lightning crackling between her fingers. "You will serve the Sith, creature, or you will be bound by chains you cannot break." Alucard's laughter echoed through the chamber again. "Chains? Oh, my dear deluded sorceress, I've worn chains, real chains, silver and blessed, inscribed with seals older than your empire, maintained by an organization that spent centuries perfecting the art of containing monsters like me." His smile took on a nostalgic quality. "Integra's family kept me leashed for decades, and do you know what I did?" He vanished. Not moved quickly, vanished, as if he'd never existed. Sorsu's car's eyes widened, her force senses screaming danger from every direction simultaneously. She spun, unleashing force lightning in a wide arc, but struck only empty air. "I obeyed," Alucard's voice came from behind her. "Because I chose to, because despite being a monster I recognized something greater than my own amusement. But you?" She whirled to find him standing mere inches away, having somehow bypassed every defensive instinct she possessed. His hand rested on her shoulder, not threatening, almost friendly, which somehow made it worse. "You summoned me thinking I was a tool, a weapon to be aimed at your enemies." His grip tightened just slightly. "Let me explain something about weapons, Lord Kaas. Weapons don't choose their targets. Weapons don't laugh at their wielders. Weapons don't drink the life force from 50 guards and ask for seconds." The remaining Dark Council member, an ancient Sith pureblood named Husk, stepped forward, his voice resonant with dark authority. "Enough posturing, abomination. You cannot kill us all. The Academy contains hundreds of Sith, each one a master of combat and the dark side. The Sith Empire spans dozens of worlds. Even you cannot stand against such might." Alucard released Sorzus and turned to face Husk with genuine interest. "Can't I? Would you like to find out?" He spread his arms wide, an invitation and a challenge. "Go ahead, sound the alarm. Rally your hundreds of dark side masters. Bring your empire's might against me." His smile became something beyond predatory. It became anticipatory. "Please, I insist." For a long moment, Husk simply stared at the vampire, reaching out through the Force to sense the truth of what stood before them. What he found made even his ancient, corrupted soul recoil. This creature wasn't bluffing. It genuinely wanted them to attack with everything they had. It craved the challenge like an addict craved their vice. But more disturbing was what else Hosk sensed: potential, raw, terrible potential. The creature's vampiric nature was already beginning to resonate with the dark side that permeated Korriban. The planet itself, steeped in millennia of Sith history and dark rituals, was feeding him, strengthening him, transforming him into something that transcended his original nature. "What are you?" Hosk whispered. Alucard's expression softened, becoming almost contemplative. "What am I?" "I've been asking myself that question for centuries. Monster, weapon, god? No life, King." He looked around the chamber at the Sith symbols carved into walls, at the lingering dark energy of countless rituals. "But now in this place I feel something new. Your dark side recognizes me, welcomes me. And I'm beginning to understand why you pulled me here, even if you don't." He walked toward the chamber's exit, the Sith parting before him like water around a stone. At the doorway, he paused and looked back. "I'm going to explore this Sith empire of yours. I'm going to learn about your force, your lightsabers, your philosophy of power through passion, and then," his eyes gleamed behind those orange glasses, "then I'm going to decide whether to be your greatest weapon or your extinction event. The choice ultimately will be yours." "Wait!" Sorza's car called out, her pride warring with pragmatism. "You said you served before, that you recognized something greater than yourself. What was it?" Alucard paused, genuine emotion flickering across his features for the first time since his arrival. Purpose, restraint, the thrill of being aimed at targets truly deserving of destruction. He glanced back at her. "If your Sith Empire can offer me that, enemies worthy of my attention, battles that mean something, then perhaps we can reach an understanding. But if you're just another collection of petty tyrants squabbling over scraps of power—" He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. The vampire disappeared into the Academy's corridors, leaving behind a chamber full of the most powerful Sith in the galaxy, each one suddenly uncertain whether they had summoned a miracle or unleashed their own doom. In his palace on Dromund Kaas, the Sith Emperor stirred for the first time in decades, his ancient consciousness touching the disturbance in the Force. He sensed the intruder, felt the unique flavor of power that was neither light nor dark, but something altogether foreign. And for the first time in a millennium, the immortal tyrant smiled. Alucard walked the ancient corridors of the Sith Academy like a tourist in a museum, utterly unconcerned with the dozens of Force signatures converging on his position. The architecture fascinated him. All sharp angles and imposing grandeur designed to intimidate, much like the Gothic cathedrals of his own world. Except these halls celebrated darkness rather than light, death rather than salvation. "How delightfully honest," he murmured, running his fingers along a wall carved with depictions of Sith conquests. "No pretense of righteousness, no hiding behind noble intentions, just pure, unapologetic hunger for power." He emerged from the Academy into Korriban's harsh desert landscape. Twin suns beat down on red sand and jagged rock formations. But what drew his attention was the valley stretching before him, the legendary Valley of the Dark Lords. Massive tomb structures rose from the desert floor, each one radiating a distinct presence in what the locals called the Force. Alucard breathed deeply, tasting the air. Death hung here like perfume, thousands of years of death, layer upon layer of accumulated darkness. It reminded him of the battlefields of World War II, of Vlad Tepes's forests of impaled enemies, of every massacre he'd participated in or witnessed across his centuries of existence. "Home," he whispered with something approaching reverence. Behind him, Sith warriors emerged from the Academy in force, 50 strong, a mixture of acolytes, full Sith warriors, and several Dark Lords. They formed a semicircle, blocking any retreat back into the Academy. Their lightsabers ignited and casting red light across the sand. A Dark Lord named Vindra stepped forward, her Twi'lek features twisted with anger. "You have violated the Sacred Academy, killed Sith guards, and assaulted members of the Dark Council. Surrender and your death will be swift." Alucard turned slowly, his coat swirling dramatically. Sacred? Oh, my dear, nothing here is sacred. Profane, certainly. Saturated with malevolence, absolutely. But sacred implies something worthy of worship, and I've been alive too long to worship anything. He tilted his head, studying the assembled Sith with genuine curiosity. Though I must admit you've built something impressive here, an entire philosophy around embracing what most beings fear. Enough talk, another Sith shouted, and the assault began. They came at him in waves, coordinated and disciplined. Lightsabers flashed in complex patterns, each strike aimed at vital points. Force lightning crackled through the air. Several Sith reached out with the Force itself, attempting to crush his throat, stop his heart, or rupture his internal organs. Alucard laughed as he fought. His movements were impossible, too fast, too fluid, defying the physical laws that should have governed even Force-enhanced combat. He dodged lightsaber strikes by millimeters, his body sometimes becoming incorporeal as blades passed through him harmlessly. When he chose to engage, his bare hands caught lightsaber blades, enduring the searing pain for the sheer joy of seeing his opponent's shocked expressions. A particularly aggressive Sith warrior managed to decapitate him. The head tumbled to the sand, orange glasses glinting in the sunlight. For a moment, triumph flashed across the warrior's face. Then Alucard's headless body caught the falling head and placed it back on his shoulders. The flesh knitted together seamlessly, and he grinned at his attacker. 10 out of 10 for execution, 0 out of 10 for effectiveness. His hand shot forward, plunging through the warrior's chest plate like it was paper. But instead of ripping out the heart, Alucard simply held his hand there, and the warrior's screams took on a different quality, not pain, but existential terror as he felt his very essence being drained away. The warrior collapsed, and Alucard straightened, his eyes briefly flashing a brighter crimson. "Oh yes," he breathed. "Force energy definitely has flavor, spicy, addictive." He looked at the remaining Sith with renewed hunger amid. "Who's next?" They hesitated, and in that hesitation Alucard struck. He moved through their ranks like a hurricane, not bothering to kill but certainly not showing mercy. Some he drained partially, leaving them weakened and shaking. Others he toyed with, demonstrating the vast gulf between their power and his. One Sith Lord managed to catch him with sustained Force lightning, and Alucard stood there enduring it, actually seeming to enjoy the agony before casually walking forward through the attack and breaking the Sith's concentration with a headbutt. Within minutes, the organized assault had become a rout. Sith warriors fled back toward the academy, their courage broken. Only the Dark Lords remained, pride refusing to let them retreat even as tactical sense screamed at them to do exactly that. Vindra gathered her remaining strength, channeling the dark side with desperate intensity. "What are you?" she demanded. "No creature can withstand this much damage. No being should be able to touch the Force without being Force-sensitive." Alucard paused, genuinely considering the question. "You're right that I'm not Force-sensitive. At least I wasn't. But you see, I've existed by consuming life for centuries. Millions of souls reside within me, each one adding to my power, my knowledge, my very being." He spread his arms, and for just an instant the air around him filled with ghostly faces, an army of the dead bound to his will. And now I'm in a galaxy where life energy, your Force, is quantifiable, tangible, consumable. Do you understand what that means? The faces vanished, but the implication hung heavy in the air. Alucard wasn't just a vampire anymore. The Force permeating Korriban, the dark side energy saturating the valley, the life essence he'd consumed from the Sith warriors, all of it was feeding him, changing him, elevating him beyond what he'd been in his original universe. "It means," he continued, walking toward the Valley of the Dark Lords, "that you've given a monster access to a new food source, and I intend to gorge myself." He entered the valley proper, and immediately the tombs reacted. Ancient Sith spirits, bound to their burial places through dark rituals, stirred at the presence of something that should not exist. Some were curious, others were hostile, All of them recognized that the rules governing life and death had been violated in a fundamental way. Alucard walked to the nearest tomb, placing his hand on the stone entrance. Through the Force, the Sith Lords behind him felt it, the vampire's consciousness pressing against the barriers between life and death, communicating with the spirit within through some means that transcended conventional necromancy. "Fascinating," Alucard said softly. "You've bound yourselves here, clinging to existence through sheer will and dark rituals. A form of immortality certainly, but so limited. Trapped in stone and memory, unable to taste blood or feel the rush of battle." He looked back at Vindra and the other Sith. "Is this truly what you aspire to? Becoming ghosts who can only watch and whisper?" "The ancient Sith Lords contain knowledge beyond your comprehension," Vindra snarled. "They have transcended death itself." "Transcended?" Alucard's laugh was genuinely amused. "They've traded death for stagnation. On the other hand..." He released his hold on the tomb and turned to face them fully. "I am death. I am the walking, talking, laughing embodiment of what mortals fear when darkness falls. And unlike your precious spirits, I can still enjoy a fine glass of blood, the thrill of combat, the simple pleasure of taking a walk on a sunny day." He paused, glancing up at Korriban's sons. "Well, perhaps not that last one. These suns are remarkably intense." The moment of levity broke as a new presence arrived, powerful, focused, radiating authority through the Force. A shuttle descended from the sky, landing between Alucard and the Academy. The boarding ramp lowered, and a figure emerged that made even the assembled Dark Lords bow their heads in respect. Darth Mar, head of the Sphere of Defense and one of the most powerful members of the Dark Council, strode forward. His armor was black as void, his mask concealing any expression, but his presence in the Force was like a gravitational well, dense, overwhelming, impossible to ignore. "I am Darth Mar," the figure announced, his voice resonant with dark side energy. "The Dark Council has debated your fate, Abomination. The Emperor himself has taken interest in you. You will accompany me to Dromund Kaas for judgment." Alucard studied this new arrival with interest. Unlike the others, Darth Mar showed no fear, no uncertainty. This was a being who had faced death countless times and emerged victorious through skill, power, and absolute conviction. An invitation to meet the Emperor. Alucard's smile returned. How delightful. "I've always wanted to meet a proper tyrant. The last one I served under was so disappointingly human in his villainy." He began walking toward the shuttle, then paused. "Though I should warn you, I have a terrible track record with authority figures. They tend to either try to control me or try to kill me, usually both." "The Emperor does not try," Darth Mar replied coldly. "He succeeds. You would do well to remember that." Alucard's laughter followed him into the shuttle. "Oh, I do hope so. It's been decades since I met someone who actually posed a challenge." As the shuttle lifted off, carrying the vampire toward Dromund Kaas and his audience with the immortal Sith Emperor, the remaining Sith in the Valley of the Dark Lords looked at each other with the same unspoken question. Had they just witnessed the birth of the Sith Empire's greatest weapon, or the beginning of its end? The journey through hyperspace gave Alucard his first glimpse of galactic travel. He stood at the shuttle's viewport, watching the streaking star lines with fascination that bordered on childlike wonder, though his ever-present smile suggested something far more predatory lurking beneath. "Faster than light travel," he murmured. "Dimensional, folding through what you call hyperspace lanes. Remarkable. My world had nothing like this. We were bound to one planet, one solar system." He glanced at Darth Mar, who stood like a statue near the pilot's compartment. "Tell me, how many inhabited worlds exist in this galaxy?" "Millions," Mar replied, his tone suggesting he considered the question beneath him. "Millions?" Alucard's smile widened. "Millions of worlds, each teeming with life, each one a potential feast." He turned back to the viewport. "You've built quite the playground here. I'm beginning to understand why you Sith are so ambitious. With resources like these, why wouldn't you reach for godhood?" "The Sith do not reach for godhood," Mar corrected. We claim it through strength. The weak perish, the strong dominate. This is the natural order. Is it, though? Alucard's voice took on a philosophical tone. I've lived for centuries watching the natural order play out. The strong do dominate, certainly, but they also grow complacent. They forget that strength is not permanent, that every apex predator eventually meets something higher on the food chain. He looked at Mar directly. What happens when your Emperor meets something he cannot dominate? That will never occur. Never is a dangerous word, Darth Mar. I've seen empires that claimed eternal dominance crumble in decades. I've watched gods bleed and monsters beg for mercy. Nothing is eternal except, he paused, considering. Well, apparently, me. And even I'm not entirely certain about that. The shuttle emerged from hyperspace above Dromund Kaas. The planet sprawled below them, its surface covered in dark jungle and electrical storms that never ceased. Massive structures rose from the wilderness, temples, military installations, and at the planet's heart, the citadel where the Dark Council convened and the Emperor maintained his throne, lightning arced between storm clouds, and Alucard felt something resonate within him. The dark side here was different from Korriban's ancient, dusty malevolence. This was active, aggressive, a living corruption that had seeped into every organism on the planet over millennia. Spectacular, he breathed. Your Emperor has excellent taste in real estate. They landed on a private platform extending from the Citadel's highest tower. A honor guard of 12 Sith warriors flanked the exit, their armor pristine, their lightsabers ready but not ignited. Beyond them stood 3 Dark Council members, each radiating power that would have made lesser beings flee. Alucard descended the ramp with casual confidence, taking in his reception committee with amusement. Such a welcoming party. Should I be flattered or concerned? Both, said one of the council members, a female Sith pureblood whose facial tendrils writhed like serpents. I am Darth Vowron. Your display on Korriban has created quite the debate. Some on the council see you as a valuable asset, others see you as an abomination to be destroyed immediately. And which are you? Vowron's smile revealed sharp teeth. I find you intriguing. Any creature that can face 50 Sith warriors and treat it as entertainment deserves consideration. She gestured toward the Citadel's entrance. The Emperor will make the final judgment. Until then, you are our guest, albeit one under heavy surveillance. Naturally. Alucard fell into step beside her as they entered the fortress. Tell me, what manner of being is this Emperor of yours? Another Force user, I presume? Someone who climbed to power through the same methods as the rest of you? Lord Vitiot is beyond your comprehension, another council member interjected, a human male whose eyes glowed with barely contained energy. He has ruled the Sith Empire for over 1,000 years. He has performed rituals that consumed entire planets. He is immortal, eternal, and absolute. Alucard stopped walking. Did you say he consumed planets? The sudden intensity in the vampire's voice made several guards tense. Vowron studied him carefully. Yes, through Sith alchemy and dark rituals, the Emperor can drain the life force from every living thing on a world, absorbing their essence to fuel his immortality. Why do you ask? For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, Alucard's expression became something other than amused or predatory. He looked respectful. Because that is the first thing anyone has told me about your empire that genuinely impresses me. Not your armies, not your force powers, not even your faster-than-light travel. But the idea of one being consuming the life of an entire planet? His smile returned, but it was different now. Appreciative. That is artistry on a scale I can respect. They continued through corridors lined with Sith architecture and iconography. Alucard absorbed every detail, the efficiency of the fortress layout, the casual displays of power as Sith apprentices dueled in practice chambers, the way even high-ranking officials carried themselves with barely restrained aggression. You've built a society where ambition is virtue and compassion is weakness, he observed. where the only crime is failure and the only law is power. It's refreshingly honest in its own way. No pretense of democracy or justice, just pure Darwinian selection. You approve? Vowron asked, sounding genuinely curious. Approve? I find it fascinating. In my world, organizations like the one I serve try to impose order on monsters like me. Rules, restrictions, targets carefully selected to serve some greater good. His voice took on a nostalgic quality. But your empire embraces what it is. Every Sith I've encountered has been honest about their desires. Power, knowledge, domination. No hypocrites hiding behind noble causes. They entered a vast chamber dominated by a single throne at its far end. The room was dark except for crimson lighting that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The Dark Council members took positions flanking the throne, forming a semicircle of power that would intimidate any petitioner. But the throne itself was empty. The Emperor will manifest when he chooses, Darth Mar explained. Until then, you will answer our questions. Starting with the most basic, what are you and why should we not destroy you immediately? Alucard walked to the chamber's center, making no defensive postures despite being surrounded by the most powerful Sith in the galaxy. What am I? I am a vampire, a creature that has transcended death by consuming life. I have existed for over 500 years. I have drunk the blood of millions. I contain within me an army of souls, each one bound to my will, each one adding to my power. He spread his arms wide. As for why you shouldn't destroy me, you're welcome to try. 50 Sith warriors already attempted it. I'm still here. They're either dead, drained, or traumatized. His smile became sharp. But I suspect the real question you want answered is simpler. What do I want? Yes, Vowron said. What does a creature of your power want in our galaxy? Alucard was silent for a long moment, his expression becoming almost contemplative. In my world, I was bound, restrained, aimed at specific targets by those who understood what I was and how to use me. It was satisfying in its way. Purpose, even if that purpose was destruction. He looked at each council member in turn. But here I am free. No blessed chains, no Helsing organization, no Integra to give me orders. So you want freedom, Darth Mar said. No. Alucard's voice cut through the chamber like a blade. I want what I've always wanted, a war worth fighting, an enemy worthy of my attention. The Helsing organization gave me that. Nazi vampires, ancient undead, beings who genuinely threatened the world I'd claimed as my hunting ground. His eyes gleamed behind those orange glasses. Can your empire offer me the same? Can you point me at enemies so powerful, so dangerous that even I might face a challenge? You wish to serve the Empire? Vowron sounded surprised. I wish to be entertained. If service to your Empire provides that entertainment, then yes, I'll serve. With conditions, naturally. But if your Empire is just another collection of petty tyrants squabbling over territory, he shrugged, then I might just decide to conquer it myself and see if that proves more interesting. The temperature in the room dropped, not physically, through the Force. Every Dark Council member reached out simultaneously, their combined power focusing on Alucard with crushing intensity. It was an attack that could have pulverized Durasteel, stopped hearts, or driven lesser beings insane. Alucard endured it with his smile intact. Impressive, he said calmly, as force energy that could devastate armies pressed against him. But you see, I'm not alive in the way you understand life. I don't have a conventional body that pressure can crush or a mind that pain can break. I am undeath-given form, sustained by consumed souls and unholy will. The pressure intensified, and he actually laughed. Is this your Empire's might? Is this the power of the Dark Council? Enough. The word wasn't spoken. It was imposed. Reality itself seemed to acknowledge the command, and instantly the council members withdrew their attack. The shadows in the chamber deepened, and a presence manifested that made even Alucard's perpetual smile falter. The throne was no longer empty. The Emperor had arrived. The figure on the throne was simultaneously present and absent, solid and ethereal, as if existence itself couldn't fully contain him. Emperor Vitiate appeared as a humanoid wrapped in dark robes, his face concealed behind an ornate mask, but his presence in the Force was something else entirely, a void that consumed light, a hunger that had devoured worlds, an intelligence that had calculated the movements of empires across centuries. For the first time since arriving in this galaxy, Alucard felt something approaching uncertainty. Fascinating. The Emperor's voice resonated not through sound but directly in the minds of everyone present. A creature from beyond our reality, a paradox that should not exist yet does. An immortal who has found his way to a galaxy where immortality is the ultimate prize. Alucard recovered his composure quickly, offering a theatrical bow. Emperor Vitiate, I presume. Your reputation precedes you. Planetary annihilation, millennium-spanning rule, the whole package. I must say I'm honored to meet someone who takes mass murder as seriously as I do. You mock me! There was no anger in the Emperor's tone, only observation. I mock everyone. It's one of my few remaining pleasures. Alucard straightened, meeting the Emperor's masked gaze without flinching. But I mean no disrespect. On the contrary, you're the first being in this galaxy who hasn't disappointed me. The Emperor studied him in silence. The Dark Council members remained motionless, not even daring to breathe loudly in their master's presence. Finally, Vitiate spoke again. You contain multitudes. I sense them within you, millions of life forces, consumed and bound to your essence. Souls that should have passed into the Force, but instead serve as fuel for your existence. The Emperor leaned forward slightly. Tell me, vampire, when you consume life, where does it go? Not into the Force, not into death, into you. You're a wound in the natural order. A wound? Alucard considered this. I suppose that's accurate. I violate the rules that govern life and death. I take what should return to your cosmic energy field and make it mine forever. He smiled. Does that offend you? It intrigues me. I have spent millennia studying death, seeking to transcend it through consuming life force on a planetary scale, yet you achieve something similar through individual predation, building your power one soul at a time. The Emperor's presence intensified. Show me. It wasn't a request. Alucard's expression darkened, but not with anger, with anticipation. Very well, though I warn you, most beings who peer into my true nature don't emerge entirely sane. The vampire's form began to shift. His shadow expanded across the chamber floor, growing deeper, darker, impossibly vast. Within that shadow, shapes moved. Faces, bodies, an army of the damned. Millions of souls, all bound to Alucard's will, all contributing to his existence. Some were soldiers from ancient battlefields. Others were vampires he'd consumed. Many were simply victims caught in his centuries-long hunt. The Dark Council members recoiled, several gasping as they witnessed something that defied Force comprehension. This wasn't necromancy or Force spirits. This was something fundamentally different. These souls hadn't passed into any afterlife. They existed in a state between death and absorption, eternally bound to the creature who had consumed them. But Emperor Vitiate leaned forward with what could only be described as hunger. Magnificent, the Emperor breathed. You don't just consume life force, you preserve it. Each soul retains its individuality even as it serves your greater whole. A form of immortality that transcends my own methods. His voice took on a covetous edge. I could learn much from studying you. Alucard's shadows retracted, his form returning to normal. I'm sure you could, but I'm not particularly interested in being a laboratory specimen. His smile returned, sharp and dangerous. Though I suspect you already knew that. Indeed. Which brings us to the question of what to do with you. The Emperor gestured and a holographic display materialized in the chamber's center, a star map showing the Sith Empire's territory and beyond. You offer to serve, but only if provided with worthy enemies. Very well, I shall test your capabilities. The map zoomed to a specific system in the mid-rim. The Jedi Order maintains a temple on Ossus, 30 Jedi Masters, over 100 knights and Padawans. They guard ancient knowledge that I have sought for decades. The Emperor's attention fixed on Alucard. Destroy them. Claim their holocrons for the Empire. Do this and I will consider your proposal. Alucard studied the holographic display with interest. Jedi. The light side practitioners you Sith are constantly feuding with, say, I've heard them mentioned. He looked at the Emperor. Are they worthy opponents? The Jedi are skilled warriors, masters of the Force, and deeply committed to their code. They will not be easy prey, even for you. A pause. Unless you fear the challenge. The vampire's laughter filled the chamber. Fear? No, Emperor. I'm delighted. Finally, a proper mission. Targets who will actually fight back with skill and conviction. He examined the star map more closely. Though I should mention, I work best alone. No Sith warriors accompanying me, no fleets providing support. Just me, a temple full of Jedi, and the entertaining possibility that some of them might actually pose a challenge. Your arrogance will be your downfall, Darth Mar interjected. My arrogance has kept me entertained for 5 centuries, Alucard countered. I think I'll maintain it a while longer. Emperor Vishiad raised a hand, silencing Mar. You will go alone as you request. But know this, vampire. If you fail, if the Jedi capture or destroy you, the Empire will not intervene. You will be alone, far from this dark side nexus that has been feeding your powers. Wait, Darth Vowron said, realization dawning. You've been drawing strength from Korriban and Dromund Kaas. The dark side energy saturating these worlds has been amplifying your abilities. Alucard inclined his head in acknowledgement. Observant. Yes, your dark side is nutritious. It resonates with my vampiric nature in ways I'm still discovering. But I existed for centuries without it. I'll manage. He looked at the Emperor. Unless you're suggesting the Jedi Temple has some defense that will actually challenge me. The Jedi draw upon the light side of the Force, an energy antithetical to darkness. Your nature, your very essence, is predicated on consuming life and embracing death. The light side represents preservation, healing, life affirmed rather than stolen. The Emperor's tone suggested satisfaction. It may not destroy you, but it will certainly inconvenience you. Good. Alucard's smile was genuine. I was worried this might be too easy. The Emperor stood from his throne, his presence expanding to fill the entire chamber. One final warning, vampire. The Jedi Temple houses not just warriors, but innocents. Younglings learning the Force, healers dedicated to preserving life. Your nature will drive you to consume them all. His voice became cold as the void. But if you wish to serve this empire, you will claim the holocrons and leave witnesses to report what transpired. I want the Jedi Order to know something exists that their light cannot banish. I want them to fear. Alucard's expression became contemplative. You want me to show restraint, to be a weapon rather than a force of nature. I want you to prove you can be controlled, that you are more than mindless hunger. The Emperor returned to his throne. Can you do that, Alucard? Can you be the monster on a leash, or are you simply a rabid beast that must be put down? The chamber fell silent. The question hung in the air, and everyone present understood its weight. This was the test, not whether Alucard could kill Jedi, but whether he could kill with purpose rather than pure appetite. The vampire was quiet for a long moment, his smile fading. When he finally spoke, his voice carried an edge that suggested old memories, old pain. I served Integra Helsing for decades. She would send me against vampire cults, against Nazi experiments, against monsters who threatened her nation. And I would obey her restrictions, no unnecessary casualties, specific targets only, witnesses left to carry warning to others. He looked directly at the Emperor. I can be a weapon. The question is whether you're worthy of wielding me. We shall see, Emperor Vitiate replied. Darth Vowron will provide you with a ship and the coordinates to Ossus. You will depart within the hour. The Emperor's presence began to fade. reality reasserting itself as his manifestation withdrew. Return successful, and you will have your war, vampire. Return as a failure, and you will have your death, however long that might take to achieve. The throne stood empty once more. Alucard turned to Darth Vowron, his perpetual smile returning. Well then, it seems I have Jedi to hunt. How exciting. He started walking toward the chamber's exit, then paused. Oh, one question. These Jedi, do they bleed red or is it some other color? I've always been curious whether Force users have physiologically different blood. Vowron stared at him. You're actually going to ask that? Professional curiosity. I take my work seriously, even if I don't take much else that way. As Alucard left the throne room, escorted by a contingent of guards who looked deeply uncomfortable with their assignment, the remaining Dark Council members exchanged glances. The Emperor is testing him, Darth Mar observed, but I believe he's also testing us to see if we can utilize such a weapon without being consumed by it. Or, Vowron added quietly, he's testing to see whether this vampire might become something even greater than a weapon, something that could challenge even the Emperor himself. None of them spoke the obvious conclusion. Emperor Vitiate had not survived for over 1,000 years by allowing potential threats to go unchecked. If Alucard succeeded at Ossus, he would prove himself useful. If he failed, the Jedi would eliminate a problem. And if he exceeded expectations, then the Sith Empire would have unleashed something into the galaxy that even they might not be able to control. The ship Darth Vowron provided was a modified Fury-class interceptor, sleek, fast, and designed for solo operations. Alucard stood in the cockpit as it dropped out of hyperspace above Ossus, studying the lush green world below with interest. Unlike Korriban's harsh deserts or Dromund Kaas's perpetual storms, this planet radiated life and vitality through the Force. How nauseating, he murmured with obvious delight. It's like staring at a field of flowers after spending decades in a slaughterhouse. Refreshingly different. The Jedi Temple dominated the planet's northern continent, a massive structure of white stone and crystalline spires that caught the sunlight like a beacon. Even from orbit, Alucard could sense the concentration of Force users within, their presences bright and interconnected like a web of light. He piloted the ship down, making no attempt at stealth. The Jedi would sense his arrival regardless, might as well make an entrance. Sure enough, as the Fury-class descended toward the temple's main landing platform, a dozen Jedi Knights emerged to meet it, their lightsabers not yet drawn but hands resting on hilts. At their center stood a female Zabrak Jedi Master, her horned head held high, her connection to the Force radiating calm authority. The boarding ramp lowered and Alucard stepped out into Ossus's afternoon sunlight. The Jedi recoiled immediately. Not physically, but through the Force they felt what he was. A void where life should be, a hunger that consumed rather than preserved. Something fundamentally wrong in a way that made their Force senses scream warning. By the Force, one of the younger knights whispered. What is that? The Zabrak Master stepped forward, her violet lightsaber igniting. I am Jedi Master Shura Kai. You bring darkness to this sacred place, creature. State your purpose, or be removed. Alucard adjusted his orange glasses, his smile widening. Master Kai, what a pleasure. I am Alucard, recently arrived in your galaxy and currently employed, loosely speaking, by the Sith Empire. I've been sent to retrieve certain holocrons from your archives and to demonstrate that the Sith have acquired a new asset. He spread his arms wide. I'm told you Jedi are skilled warriors. I do hope that's true. It's been a tedious journey. You speak as if you have a choice in what happens next, Shura said, her voice steady despite what her Force senses told her about this creature. You are outnumbered. On a world saturated with the light side of the Force, surrender and we will show you mercy. Resist and… Alucard vanished. One instant he stood at the boarding ramp, the next he materialized behind the rightmost Jedi Knight. His hand rested almost gently on the young man's shoulder. Mercy, how kind. But you see, I didn't come here for mercy, I came here for entertainment. Shura spun, bringing her lightsaber around in a strike that should have bisected the vampire. Alucard released the knight and leaned backward, the plasma blade passing millimeters from his face. He could feel the heat, smell the ozone, sense the light side energy channeled through the weapon. "Interesting," he said, still bent impossibly backward. "Your lightsabers carry force energy, not just plasma. It actually stings a bit." He straightened with inhuman fluidity. "Let's see how much." The Jedi attacked in concert, their movements coordinated through force bonds built over years of training together. Lightsabers wove patterns of blue and green light, each strike calculated to work with the others, creating a web of plasma that should have been inescapable. Alucard danced through it. His movements were wrong, too fast in some moments, too slow in others, defying the rhythm the Jedi expected. He dodged strikes that should have been impossible to perceive, took hits that should have been lethal, and throughout it all, he laughed. A lightsaber pierced his shoulder. He grabbed the blade, enduring the searing pain, and used it to pull himself closer to the wielding Jedi. His other hand shot forward, fingers pressing against the knight's forehead. The Jedi's eyes widened in horror as he felt something invading his mut. Not a force technique, but something else entirely. A presence that drank in his memories, his training, his very essence. Alucard released him and the knight collapsed, alive but drained, his force presence dimmed like a candle in a storm. "Oh, that's different," the vampire said thoughtfully. "Your force energy has a distinct flavor compared to the Sith. Cleaner, brighter, but also limited. You hold yourselves back, don't you? Afraid of what you might become if you embraced your full potential." "You know nothing of the Jedi way!" Shura unleashed a force push that should have sent him flying. Instead, Alucard staggered back several steps, actually showing strain for the first time. "Ah," he sounded genuinely pleased. Now that had some force behind it, no pun intended. He steadied himself, noting how the light side energy had burned where it touched him. "The Emperor was right. Your light is inconvenient. Not fatal, but certainly uncomfortable." More Jedi poured from the temple entrance. Masters, knights, even some of the older Padawans, all responding to the disturbance in the Force. Within moments, Alucard faced over 50 lightsaber-wielding warriors, all of them radiating righteous determination. He couldn't have been more delighted. "Now this is more like it! A proper battle!" His shadow expanded across the landing platform, growing darker and deeper despite the afternoon sun. "Let me show you what your precious light is really up against." From the shadow emerged forms, humanoid shapes made of darkness, each one the manifestation of a soul Alucard had consumed. The familiars howled with voices that were not quite sound, charging at the Jedi ranks with supernatural speed and strength. The Jedi responded with disciplined precision. Lightsabers cut through the shadow creatures, their light side energy more effective against these manifestations than conventional weapons would have been. But for every familiar destroyed, 2 more emerged from Alucard's expanding darkness. "You cannot win this battle, creature," Shura called out, even as she bisected 3 familiars with a single spinning strike. "The light side strengthens us. This temple has stood for millennia as a bastion against darkness. Yes, yes, light conquers darkness. Hope triumphs over evil, the whole heroic speech." Alucard waved dismissively, even as Jedi Knights closed in around him. "But you're missing the fundamental point, Master Kai. I'm not darkness trying to overcome light. I'm hunger, and hunger doesn't care about philosophy." A Jedi Master, a grizzled human with gray streaks in his beard, managed to get close enough for a devastating overhead strike. His lightsaber came down with precision and power, aimed at Alucard's skull. The vampire made no move to dodge. The blade connected. Alucard's head split down the middle, blood spraying in a grotesque fountain. The Jedi Master's moment of triumph lasted exactly 2 seconds before the vampire's hand shot up, grabbing either side of his own bisected skull and pulling it back together. The flesh knitted seamlessly, leaving not even a scar. "Good hit," Alucard said conversationally. 7 out of 10. "You committed fully to the strike, good form, excellent power, lost points for assuming that would actually stop me." The Jedi Master stumbled backward, his lightsaber trembling in hands that suddenly felt inadequate. Around the battlefield, other Jedi were experiencing similar revelations. This creature could not be killed by conventional means, and their light side powers, while effective at causing pain, seemed unable to permanently harm him. "Fall back!" Shura commanded. "To the temple! We defend the archives!" The Jedi began a fighting retreat, their discipline holding despite the horror they faced. Alucard pursued leisurely, his familiars harrying the warriors but not overwhelming them. He was giving them time to reach the temple, time to set up defenses. He wanted them to feel hope before he crushed it. The temple's massive doors sealed behind the last Jedi, blast shields dropping into place. Through the four, Shura coordinated the defense, Masters positioning themselves at key points, Knights establishing patrol patterns, Padawans evacuating the younglings to the deepest chambers. Outside, Alucard stood before the sealed entrance, studying the ancient stonework. He placed a hand against the door, feeling the light side energy infused into the very structure of the temple. Centuries of Jedi meditation, training, and dedication had saturated these walls with force energy antithetical to his nature. "A fortress of light," he murmured, "designed to repel darkness, beautiful craftsmanship." He stepped back, his smile widening impossibly. "But you see, I'm very good at breaking beautiful things." His shadow exploded outward, thousands of familiars manifesting simultaneously. They didn't attack the door, they flowed around it, seeping through ventilation systems, cracks in the foundation, any gap in the temple's defenses. Within moments, alarms rang throughout the structure as darkness invaded the stronghold of light. Inside, Jedi Masters felt the intrusion and moved to intercept. What followed was a running battle through sacred halls, lightsabers against shadow creatures, force powers against supernatural manifestations, light against darkness that refused to be banished. And through it all, Alucard walked calmly through the front entrance, the sealed door having simply opened. No explosion, no forced entry. He had found a service entrance, killed the guard stationed there with casual efficiency, and accessed the temple's security systems through a terminal. Even supernatural monsters could appreciate the value of mundane solutions. "Now then," he said, consulting the temple's layout on a datapad he'd appropriated. "Archives are in the eastern wing, 3rd sublevel. Holocrons specifically stored in Vault 7. He looked up as 3 Jedi Knights rounded the corner, their lightsabers blazing. "Excuse me, gentlemen, I'm on something of a schedule." The battle for Ossus had truly begun. The temple's corridors became a labyrinth of chaos and light. Alucard moved through them like a crimson shadow, his familiars creating diversions while he pursued his objective with single-minded focus. The Jedi fought valiantly, their lightsabers carving through darkness, their force powers creating barriers and sanctuaries of light that his shadows could not penetrate. But Alucard didn't need to break every defense. He simply needed to reach the archives. A Jedi Master named Corvus intercepted him at the entrance to the eastern wing, a towering Cathar whose orange fur bristled with barely contained aggression. His dual lightsabers spun in intricate patterns, creating a wall of green plasma between the vampire and his destination. "You will go no further, abomination," Corvus growled, his feline features twisted in righteous fury. "I have defended this temple for 30 years. I will not allow it to fall to the likes of you." Alucard stopped, genuinely studying the Jedi Master. Through his centuries of combat experience, he recognized a true warrior, someone who had moved beyond technique into instinctive mastery. 30 years, impressive dedication. "Tell me, Master Corvus, in all that time, have you ever truly been tested? Or have you spent 3 decades defending against threats that never materialized?" "The threat is here now." Corvus lunged, his dual blades moving in perfect synchronization. The force flowed through him like a river, enhancing his speed, his strength, his perception. Every strike was calculated not just to damage, but to create openings for follow-up attacks. Alucard engaged him directly for the first time since entering the temple. No shadow tricks, no regeneration games, Just pure combat skill honed over centuries against the Cathar's lifetime of Jedi training. Their battle moved through the corridor like a deadly dance, lightsabers searing the air wherever the vampire dodged rather than blocked. "You're good," Alucard admitted, his coat acquiring new burn marks with each passing second. "Better than the Sith warriors I faced on Korriban. You fight with purpose beyond mere ambition." A lightsaber grazed his cheek, cutting deep, but purpose alone isn't enough. He caught one of Corvus's lightsabers mid-swing, his hand wrapped around the plasma blade despite the agonizing burn. The Cathar's eyes widened as Alucard used the trapped weapon as an anchor, pulling himself forward into point-blank range. His other hand pressed against Corvus's chest, not striking, just touching. The Jedi Master felt it immediately. Something was draining from him. Not blood, not force energy exactly, but something more fundamental. His life force, his very essence, being siphoned away by this creature's unnatural hunger. "No," Corvus gasped, trying to pull away but finding himself held fast. "I won't let you." "You Jedi talk about the Force binding the galaxy together," Alucard said softly, almost gently. "But you never consider what happens when something exists outside that binding. I don't take your Force energy, Master Corvus. I take what generates it, the life that produces the energy in the first place." With visible effort, Corvus released one lightsaber and grabbed Alucard's arm with his free hand. Light side energy poured through the contact, pure, searing, antithetical to everything the vampire was. Alucard hissed in genuine pain as the light burned him from within, but he didn't let go. It became a contest of wills. Corvus channeling the light side with everything he had. Alucard enduring that burning purity while simultaneously draining the life that fueled it. Two opposing forces locked in direct confrontation, neither willing to yield. Finally, Alucard smiled through the pain. "Admirable, Master Corvus, truly. But I've been burned by blessed weapons, holy water, and Vatican assassins. Your light hurts, but pain is just another sensation to enjoy." His grip tightened. Corvus's force presence flickered like a guttering flame. The Cathar slumped, unconscious but alive. His fur turned slightly gray at the temples where it had been pure orange moments before. Alucard released him carefully, laying the Jedi Master against the corridor wall almost respectfully. "You fought well, better than you deserved to against someone like me." He continued toward the archives, leaving Corvus alive as the Emperor had commanded, a witness to carry word of what had transpired. The archive entrance was sealed behind a massive vault door inscribed with Jedi symbols. 4 Jedi Knights stood guard, their faces showing the strain of maintaining a force barrier across the entrance. They had felt Corvus fall and knew what approached. "There's no honor in what you're doing," one of them said, a young human woman whose voice trembled despite her steady stance. "Attacking a temple of learning, terrorizing those who seek only knowledge and peace." "Honor?" Alucard tilted his head. "I've been many things across the centuries, monster, weapon, legend. Nightmare, but honorable, that's never been on the list." He approached the force barrier, feeling its light side energy pushing against his very existence. "Though I notice you Jedi are quite selective about whose pursuit of knowledge you respect. The Sith seek knowledge too, don't they? Yet you oppose them at every turn." "The Sith seek power through suffering and domination," another knight replied. "We seek understanding through harmony and balance." And yet both sides believe they're right. Both sides claim the moral high ground. Both sides have spent millennia killing each other over philosophical differences. Alucard's smile faded slightly. "At least I'm honest about what I am. I don't dress up my predation in noble purpose." He pressed his hand against the force barrier. Pain shot through his arm as light side energy seared his flesh, but he maintained contact. His shadow began to flow around him, probing the barrier's edges, searching for weaknesses in the Jedi's concentration. The knights reinforced their defense, pouring more force energy into the barrier. For several minutes it held, a wall of pure light against encroaching darkness. Then Master Shura's voice echoed through the temple's communication system. All units, priority alert. The creature has released hundreds of shadow manifestations throughout the temple. Younglings in danger, all available masters, converge on the training halls immediately. The four knights exchanged anguished looks, duty warred with pragmatism across their faces. They had younglings to protect, children who couldn't defend themselves against this monster's attacks. But if they abandoned their posts, the archives would fall. "Go," one of them finally said, an older knight with gray hair and sad eyes. "I'll hold the barrier alone, save the children." The three younger knights hesitated only a moment before sprinting down the corridor toward the training halls, their connection to the Force guiding them toward the younglings in danger. Alucard watched them go, then looked at the remaining knight with something approaching respect. "Sacrificing yourself to buy time for others. How very Jedi of you." "We protect those who cannot protect themselves," the knight replied simply. "It's what separates us from monsters like you." "Does it?" Alucard's shadows surged forward, pressing against the barrier with renewed intensity. "I served an organization once, Hellsing. They fought monsters to protect humanity. I was their greatest weapon, a monster aimed at other monsters." His voice took on a contemplative tone. "Bows. Were they any different from your Jedi Order? Using necessary evil to combat greater evil?" The knight's barrier was weakening, his strength failing as he tried to maintain it alone. "The difference," he gasped, "is that we don't revel in the destruction we cause. We don't smile while taking lives." "No," Alucard agreed. "You just do it anyway and call it service." The barrier shattered, light fragmenting into nothingness. "At least I'm honest about enjoying the hunt." He walked past the knight, who collapsed to his knees, exhausted. The vault door loomed before him, its lock mechanism protected by both technology and force-infused wards. Alucard examined it with the focus of a connoisseur examining a masterpiece. Beautiful work. Layers upon layers of protection, each one designed to stop a different type of intrusion. He placed both hands on the door, his shadow flowing into every seam and crack. "But you see, I'm not trying to break your defenses. I'm simply becoming part of them." His form became incorporeal, shadow and mist rather than solid matter. He flowed through the door itself, bypassing every lock and ward by refusing to trigger them. Within seconds, he stood in the archives, a vast chamber lined with shelves containing holocrons of every color and design, each one holding knowledge accumulated across generations of Jedi. "Magnificent," he breathed, his form solidifying. "Centuries of wisdom just sitting here waiting to be claimed." He moved through the archives with purpose, selecting specific holocrons based on information Darth Vowron had provided. Ancient techniques, forgotten powers, knowledge that the Sith Empire had sought for decades. Each holocron went into a satchel he'd brought for exactly this purpose. Behind him, he heard the vault door opening, not breached, but unlocked from within. Master Shura stood in the entrance, her lightsaber ignited, her expression radiating grim determination. "There are no younglings in danger, are there?" she said quietly. Alucard smiled. "No. Just a recording I had one of my familiars broadcast through your communication system. Quite effective, I must say. Your knights have excellent protective instincts. You used our compassion against us. I used your predictability against you. Compassion was simply the lever." He continued collecting holocrons, not bothering to defend himself. "Are you going to attack me, Master Shura? Or are you going to stand there wrestling with the ethics of striking someone who isn't currently threatening you?" Shura's grip on her lightsaber tightened. Through the Force, she could sense the temple around her, Jedi recovering from encounters with shadow creatures, younglings being evacuated to ships in the hangar, masters regrouping to mount a coordinated defense. And here, in the heart of their most sacred space, a creature that shouldn't exist was looting their accumulated knowledge with casual efficiency. "The Sith sent you?" she said. "But you're not Sith. You don't serve them, not truly. So why do this? What do you gain from helping them?" Alucard paused, actually considering the question. "Entertainment, purpose, A war worth fighting in a galaxy I don't understand. He looked at her directly. In my world, I was a monster on a leash. Here, I have a choice: remain a mindless predator or become something more. The Sith offer me targets, structure, a reason to exist beyond simple hunger. His smile became almost sad. Is that so different from why you became a Jedi? We serve life, you serve death. I am death, but even death can have purpose beyond simple ending. He finished collecting the holocrons and turned to face her fully. The Emperor commanded me to leave witnesses, survivors to tell the tale of what happened here. Consider yourself one of them, Master Shura. Tell your Jedi Council that the Sith have acquired something new, something that doesn't follow the old rules. He began walking toward the exit. Shura moved to block his path, lightsaber held in perfect defensive form. I can't let you take those holocrons. You can't stop me. They stood facing each other, warrior and monster, light and darkness made manifest. The temple trembled with the weight of their opposition. Then Alucard did something unexpected. He stopped smiling. Master Shura, I have consumed the life essence of millions. I have fought armies and laughed while doing it. I have been destroyed and returned more powerful each time. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. If I wanted to kill everyone in this temple, I could. The Emperor told me to show restraint, to leave witnesses. I'm choosing to honor that command. Not because I must, but because I'm curious to see where this path leads. He stepped around her, moving toward the exit. But know this, the next time we meet, I may not be so accommodating. Tell your council, warn them. The galaxy has changed, and the old rules no longer apply. Shura didn't pursue him. She stood in the violated archives, surrounded by the holocrons he'd left behind. He had taken what he was sent for, but left most of the archives intact. A message, perhaps, or simply a monster showing the restraint that separated weapons from wild beasts. Above, Alucard's ship lifted off from the landing platform, carrying its cargo of stolen knowledge back to the Sith Empire. Behind him, the Jedi Temple stood wounded but not destroyed, its defenders alive but humbled. The first Sith vampire had completed his mission. The return to Dromund Kaas was met with what could only be described as anticipation mixed with dread. The Dark Council convened in full session for the first time in months, each member present either physically or through holographic projection. Emperor Vitiate's throne remained empty, but his presence permeated the chamber like a physical weight. Alucard stood in the center of the council chamber, the satchel of stolen holocrons at his feet, looking remarkably pleased with himself despite the burns that still marked his hands and face, injuries from prolonged contact with light side energy that were healing far slower than his usual wounds. The Jedi Temple on Ossus stands intact, Darth Mar began, his tone carefully neutral. Our intelligence confirms minimal casualties among their ranks. Yet you return claiming success. Because I achieved exactly what the Emperor requested. Alucard gestured to the satchel. 23 holocrons containing knowledge the Sith Empire has sought for decades. Information on ancient Force techniques, records of long-dead Jedi Masters, and several items specifically listed in the briefing I received, he smiled. All acquired without reducing the temple to rubble or slaughtering every Jedi present. Restraint as commanded. Darth Vowron stepped forward using the Force to lift one of the holocrons from the satchel. The blue crystal pyramid hummed softly, its light side energy making several council members unconsciously recoil. These are authentic, she confirmed. And several are items we've been seeking for over a century. The question, Darth Ravage interjected, a Sith pureblood whose scarred face reflected decades of combat, is why you showed restraint at all. A creature of your nature surrounded by Force-sensitive prey in a temple full of potential victims, yet you limited yourself to your mission parameters. His eyes narrowed. Why? Alucard was silent for a moment, his perpetual smile fading into something more contemplative. Because mindless slaughter is boring. I've had centuries of it. Battlefields soaked in blood, wars where I was simply let loose to destroy everything in my path. It's entertaining for perhaps the first few decades, but eventually, he trailed off, then shrugged. I wanted to see if I could be more than just a force of nature. If I could be a weapon with purpose rather than a disaster that happens to benefit its wielders. Philosophical growth from an undead abomination, Ravage sneered. How touching. Mock-y. If you wish. Alucard's smile returned, sharp and dangerous. But consider this. I could have ignored the Emperor's commands. I could have consumed every Jedi in that temple, absorbed their force energy, and likely emerged powerful enough to challenge anyone in this chamber. I chose restraint. I chose purpose over appetite. He looked around at each council member in turn, which makes me more dangerous, not less, because a monster that thinks is far more threatening than one that simply acts on instinct. Emperor Vitiat's presence suddenly manifested, not physically, but as an overwhelming consciousness that pressed down on everyone present. When he spoke, reality itself seemed to resonate with his words. You have proven yourself capable of following commands while maintaining your effectiveness as a weapon. More importantly, you have demonstrated something I did not expect: strategic thinking beyond immediate gratification. The Emperor's attention focused entirely on Alucard. The Jedi will report what occurred. Word will spread of a new Sith asset that cannot be killed by conventional means. Fear will take root in our enemies' hearts. Fear is a powerful tool, Alucard agreed. In my world, the Helsing organization cultivated it carefully, let certain rumors spread, allow certain witnesses to survive, and soon every vampire, ghoul, and supernatural threat knew that if Helsing deployed their trump card, death was the only possible outcome. He paused. Is that what you want me to become? The Sith Empire's boogeyman? The nightmare that hunts in the dark? I want you to become something more. The Emperor's throne manifested fully now, Vitiat's physical form appearing as if it had always been present. The Sith philosophy is simple. Through passion we gain strength. Through strength we gain power. Through power we gain victory. Through victory we break our chains. His masked face turned toward the vampire. You have existed for centuries as a being bound by your nature, compelled to feed, unable to truly die, forever separated from normal existence. Tell me, Alucard, what chains do you wish to break? The question hung in the air like a guillotine blade. Every being in the chamber felt the weight of it, not just words, but a test that would determine the vampire's future role in the Empire. Alucard stood motionless for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice carried an edge of raw honesty that surprised even himself. In my world, I was cursed with immortality. Centuries of existence with no end in sight, nothing that could truly challenge me, no enemy that posed genuine danger. I served Integra because it gave my endless existence meaning, but even that was just passing time. He looked directly at Emperor Vitiate. Here in this galaxy, I've discovered something I thought lost forever: uncertainty. The Force is something I don't fully understand. Your technology defies what I knew about physics. The Jedi's light side energy actually hurts me in ways I'm still discovering. His smile became genuine, almost vulnerable. I want to break the chain of boredom, of meaningless existence. I want to find enemies that make me feel alive, or whatever approximation of alive I can achieve. I want purpose beyond simple survival. Then you shall have it. Emperor Vitiat stood, his presence expanding to fill the entire chamber. The Sith Empire has many enemies. The Jedi Order is merely the most visible. There are ancient threats, forgotten powers, beings that predate our civilization. I will direct you against them one by one until you either find the challenge you seek or prove yourself unworthy of continued existence. Darth Mar stepped forward. Emperor, are you proposing we formally integrate this creature into our military structure? No. Vitiat's tone was absolute. Alucard will not serve as a soldier or even as a Sith Lord. He will be something unique, an independent agent answering directly to me, deployed against threats too dangerous or unusual for conventional forces. The Emperor's masked gaze swept across the council. You will provide him with intelligence, resources, and transportation as needed, but his operations will remain separate from standard military chains of command. That's unprecedented, Darth Vowron observed, though her tone suggested intrigue rather than opposition. An asset with that much autonomy could become a threat to the Empire itself. Yes, the Emperor agreed simply, which is why I will maintain direct control over his assignments. If he proves treacherous or unreliable, I will personally ensure his destruction, however long that process might take. Alucard laughed, the sound echoing through the chamber. Satgai. A leash made of purpose rather than chains. How delightfully familiar. Very well, Emperor Vitiate. I accept your terms. His smile widened. Point me at your worst nightmares, and let's see if they can make me feel something resembling fear. Your first true assignment begins immediately. The Emperor gestured, and a holographic display materialized, showing a desolate star system on the galaxy's edge. 3 months ago, a Sith archaeological expedition disappeared on Malachor V. This world is a wound in the Force, a place where ancient Sith and Jedi battled, where thousands died in a single catastrophic moment. The dark side there is not just powerful, but traumatized, twisted into something that drives even experienced Sith mad. The hologram showed images of a shattered planet, its surface scarred by ancient destruction, storm clouds roiling with unnatural energy. Nothing survives on Malachor for long, Darth Ravage added. The few who have landed there report hallucinations, force echoes so powerful they seem real, and a pervasive sense of wrongness that intensifies with every passing hour. Most explorers flee within days. Those who don't return. Sounds delightful, Alucard said with genuine enthusiasm. What am I looking for? The expedition was searching for a Sith artifact called the Thought Bomb, a weapon created by ancient Sith Lords that, when detonated, strips the life force from every Force-sensitive being in range. The expedition leader believed they had located it. Emperor Vitiate's tone became cold as the void. If they succeeded, and if something on Malachor has claimed that weapon, it represents a threat even to this empire. A weapon that specifically targets Force users. Alucard's eyes gleamed behind his orange glasses. And you're sending someone who isn't Force-sensitive in the traditional sense. Clever. You will go to Malachor V. You will determine what happened to the expedition. If the Thought Bomb exists and can be recovered, bring it to me. If something has claimed it... The Emperor paused meaningfully. Eliminate the threat, by any means necessary. No restrictions this time? Alucard asked. No witnesses to leave? No restraint to demonstrate? Malachor is already dead. Whatever exists there now is an affront to both the living and the dead. You have full authorization to unleash your complete capabilities. The Emperor's presence intensified. Show me what you truly are when the leash is removed. Alucard's smile became something terrible and beautiful at once, the expression of a predator finally given permission to hunt without restriction, of a weapon finally aimed at a target worthy of its destructive potential. Finally, he breathed, a proper war. The Dark Council watched as the vampire departed the chamber, his crimson coat swirling dramatically behind him. Several members exchanged concerned glances, suddenly aware that they had just witnessed the Empire unleash something that even they might not be able to control. Darth Vowron approached the Emperor's throne after the others had departed. My lord, if I may speak candidly, are you certain about this? Giving him that much freedom on a world where madness is guaranteed? Alucard is already mad by any conventional definition, Emperor Vitiate replied calmly. The question is whether Malachor's particular brand of insanity will strengthen him or reveal weaknesses we can exploit. He turned his masked face toward her. Either way, we learn something valuable, and if he falls, we lose only an unpredictable asset. If he succeeds... The Emperor didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. If Alucard succeeded on Malachor V, a world that had broken armies and driven Sith Lords insane, then the Empire would possess a weapon capable of facing any threat in the galaxy, or would have created a monster that even they couldn't stop. Malachor. 5 emerged from the viewport like a wound in space itself. The planet's surface was a nightmare of jagged rock and perpetual electrical storms, its atmosphere thick with ash from destruction that had occurred millennia ago but still burned in the Force's memory. Even from orbit, Alucard could feel something wrong about this place, not through Force sensitivity, but through the simple recognition that certain locations in any universe became saturated with death. "Home away from home," he murmured, piloting his ship through the turbulent atmosphere. The descent was violent. Lightning arcs thick as starship hulls lashed at his vessel, drawn to the metal like predators to prey. Gravitational anomalies yanked the ship in unexpected directions, and the sensors displayed readings that made no physical sense. Temporal distortions, spatial compressions, reality itself seeming uncertain about what laws to follow. Alucard loved every moment of it. He landed near the coordinates where the Sith expedition had established their base camp, a cluster of prefabricated structures now half buried in ash and debris. The boarding ramp lowered and Malachor's atmosphere rolled in like a living thing. It tasted of ozone, ancient suffering, and something else, a psychic residue so concentrated it was almost tangible. The moment his boots touched the surface, the Force echoes hit him, thousands of voices screaming simultaneously. Jedi and Sith locked in eternal combat, their final moments replayed endlessly across this traumatized landscape. Lightsabers clashing in battles that had ended millennia ago but refused to fade. A superweapon activating, stripping the life force from every Force-sensitive being in range, leaving their bodies standing where they felt like grotesque statues. For anyone else, the psychic assault would have been overwhelming. Force users reported hallucinations so vivid they became indistinguishable from reality. Non-Force sensitives felt crushing despair and existential terror that drove many to suicide within hours. Alucard experienced it all and started laughing. "Oh, this is exquisite!" His voice carried across the dead landscape. "An entire planet traumatized so deeply that reality itself hasn't recovered. The Force echoes are so thick I can almost taste them." He spread his arms wide, embracing the psychic assault. "Show me more. Show me every moment of agony, every death scream, every drop of blood spilled in your ancient war." The echoes intensified as if responding to his invitation. Around him, ghostly figures materialized. Sith and Jedi locked in eternal combat, their forms translucent but their hatred and fear perfectly preserved. They moved through their death battles over and over, unable to escape the moment of their destruction. Alucard walked through them like a tourist in a museum, observing each echo with genuine fascination. A Jedi Padawan being cut down by Sith assassins, her final expression of betrayed innocence frozen in time. A Sith Lord consumed by his own dark side power, imploding into nothingness while still reaching for more strength. Dozens, hundreds, thousands of individual tragedies playing out simultaneously. "You're all trapped here," he said to the echoes, knowing they couldn't respond. "Bound by the moment of your deaths, unable to move forward or back. A form of immortality, I suppose, but what a terrible one." He knelt beside the echo of a dying Jedi Master, studying the man's face. "At least when I consume souls, they become part of something greater. You're just stuck, forever experiencing your worst moment." He stood and continued toward the expedition's base camp. The structures were intact but abandoned, or rather their occupants had left in a hurry. Equipment lay scattered, datapads still active, personal effects discarded as if their owners had suddenly decided possessions no longer mattered. Alucard found the first body in the main research tent. The Sith archaeologist sat in a meditation pose, perfectly preserved by Malachor's hostile environment. No visible wounds, no signs of struggle, just a corpse sitting serenely, face locked in an expression that couldn't decide between ecstasy and absolute terror. "Let's see what you experienced." Alucard placed his hand on the corpse's forehead, extending his vampiric senses into the residual traces of life that clung to the body. Normally, the dead told him nothing. Their souls had already departed. But here on Malachor, where death itself was uncertain, He found fragments, echoes within echoes. Images flooded his consciousness, the expedition discovering a temple deep beneath the surface, ancient Sith architecture that predated the modern empire by millennia. Wards and warnings inscribed in languages most of the team couldn't read. And at the temple's heart, a chamber containing an orb of pure darkness. Not metaphorical darkness, but an object that seemed to absorb light, sound, and hope itself, the thought bomb, or at least something claiming to be. The archaeologist had touched it, had felt the accumulated death of thousands of Force users compressed into a single artifact, had sensed the weapon's purpose to strip life force from Force-sensitive beings, and realized too late that Malachor itself was still feeding it. Every Force echo, every psychic remnant of the ancient battle was being slowly absorbed by the artifact, making it stronger with each passing year. And something was directing that absorption, something intelligent, something that had been waiting in the temple for centuries, patient as only the undead could be. "Oh, now this is interesting," Alucard breathed, releasing the corpse. "You found something that predates the Sith Empire, something that views the thought bomb as a tool rather than a relic." His smile widened. "I wonder if it knows I'm here." As if in answer, the Force echoes suddenly changed. The ghostly battles ceased their endless repetition. Every translucent figure turned toward Alucard simultaneously, thousands of dead eyes fixing on him with unified purpose. Their mouths opened, and a single voice emerged from all of them. Ancient, hollow, resonant with malevolent intelligence. "Another comes, another life to feed the darkness, another soul to join the eternal scream." Alucard laughed with pure delight. "Oh, you can speak! And here I thought you were just ambient psychic trauma. This is wonderful." He addressed the Force echoes as if having a casual conversation. "Tell me, are you the weapon itself, or something that claimed the weapon? Because there's a distinct difference between a tool and a wielder, and I'm curious which category you fall into." The echoes moved as one, converging on his position. Their translucent forms became more solid, more real, as if the ancient intelligence was channeling them into actual physical manifestations. Lightsabers that shouldn't exist ignited in ghostly hands. Force powers that should have been impossible for echoes to wield began gathering in spectral palms. "We are the dead who refuse rest. We are the price of ambition. We are what remains when entire armies perish in single moments." The unified voice became a chorus of agony. "And you are wrong. You are neither living nor dead, neither Force-sensitive nor Force-blind. You should not exist." Funny, I get that a lot. Alucard's shadow exploded outward, his own familiars manifesting to meet the Force echoes. "But you see, I've been shouldn't exist for 5 centuries now. I've gotten rather comfortable with it." The battle that erupted was unlike anything Malachor had witnessed in millennia. Force echoes, ghosts of Jedi and Sith empowered by whatever intelligence inhabited the thought bomb, clashed against familiars that were themselves manifestations of consumed souls. Ghost against ghost, echo against echo, in a conflict that transcended normal physical laws. Alucard waded through the chaos, taking hits from lightsabers that were simultaneously real and not real, their damage uncertain until his body decided whether to acknowledge it. He laughed as a ghostly Sith Lord's Force lightning passed through him, the energy dispersing into his shadow rather than his flesh. Saiti. He caught a Jedi Echo's blade with his bare hand and absorbed the entire manifestation, adding one more voice to his internal army. "That's the trick, isn't it?" He called out to the intelligence directing the echoes. "You're bound to this place, feeding on Force echoes because that's all Malachor provides. But I'm not Force energy. I'm something your weapon can't touch because I exist outside the rules it was designed to exploit. Then we shall learn new rules." The ground beneath Alucard's feet suddenly gave way, not collapsed, dissolved, as if reality itself had decided that solid matter was optional. He plummeted into darkness, falling through layers of rock and time, passing through strata of geological history until he crashed into an ancient chamber that predated the Sith Empire's records. The thought bomb hung suspended in the chamber's center, a perfect sphere of compressed darkness, roughly 2 meters in diameter, emanating a cold that had nothing to do with temperature. Around it, the walls were inscribed with Sith texts so ancient that even Alucard's absorbed knowledge from drained Sith warriors couldn't fully translate it. And standing before the thought bomb was a figure that made even the vampire pause. It appeared humanoid, wrapped in robes that might have once been Sith ceremonial garb but had long since decayed into tattered shadows. Its face was concealed behind a mask of polished bone, and its presence in the Force was a void so absolute it made Alucard's own emptiness seem shallow by comparison. "Welcome, Anomaly." The figure's voice was the same unified chorus that had spoken through the echoes. "I am Darth Nihilus, and you are the first being in millennia who might understand what I have become." Alucard stood slowly, dusting off his coat with exaggerated care. "Darth Nihilus. I know that name. The Sith archaeologist records mentioned you. One of the ancient Sith Lords, consumed by hunger for Force energy, supposedly died thousands of years ago." His smile returned. "But death is negotiable, isn't it? Especially on a world like Malachor. Death is illusion. Hunger is eternal." Nihilus raised one tattered arm toward the thought bomb. "This weapon was meant to destroy. Instead, it sustained me. Every Force echo on this planet feeds into it, and through it, feeds me." The figure tilted its head. "But you hunger as I do. You consume as I do. You exist between life and death as I do. Are you proposing an alliance? Because I'm already employed, and the Sith Empire tends to frown on their weapons-forming independent partnerships. I propose understanding." Nihilus moved closer, each step accompanied by the whisper of 1,000 tortured souls. "You serve Emperor Vitiat, but he seeks immortality through domination. You and I, we have already achieved immortality through consumption. We are kindred." Alucard was silent for a moment, genuinely considering the statement. Here stood a being who, in many ways, mirrored his own existence, a creature that had transcended normal death through an insatiable hunger sustained by consuming what others considered sacred or taboo. "Tempting," he finally said. "But there's one critical difference between us, Darth Nihilus. You're trapped here, bound to Malachor and your thought bomb, feeding on echoes because you can't leave. He gestured expansively. "I can go anywhere, fight anyone, find challenges and purposes beyond simple survival." His smile became sharp. "You're not kindred. You're what I might become if I let hunger be my only defining trait. And frankly, that sounds boring." The temperature in the chamber dropped impossibly further. Nihilus's form expanded, shadows billowing out like wings, the thought bomb's darkness flowing into him until he became something vast and terrible, a manifestation of pure endless hunger given semi-physical form. "Then you will feed me instead." The attack was instant and absolute. Nihilus reached out with power that transcended normal Force techniques, attempting to drain Alucard's very existence the same way he'd consumed countless Jedi and Sith across millennia. It was an attack designed to strip away life force, to consume the essence that animated living beings, to reduce even the strongest Force users to empty husks. Alucard felt it pulling at him and laughed. "Oh, you beautiful fool. You're trying to consume something that's already been consumed millions of times over." His shadow exploded into full manifestation, and for the first time since arriving in this galaxy, he released the true extent of his power. The chamber filled with souls, millions of them, all bound to Alucard's will, all contributing to his existence. They formed a wall against Nihilus's draining power, providing an endless buffer of life force for the ancient Sith Lord to consume. And with each soul absorbed, Nihilus found himself taking in not sustenance but more of Alucard himself, consciousness, personality, will, all flowing backward through the connection he'd established. "You can't consume me," Alucard said, his voice coming from 1,000 mouths simultaneously. "Because I'm not one being, I'm millions, and we're all very, very hungry." The battle for Malachor Five had truly begun. The ancient chamber became a maelstrom of competing hungers. Darth Nihilus, sustained by millennia of consuming force echoes, met Alucard, sustained by centuries of consuming souls. Two immortal predators, each one a violation of natural law, locked in a contest to determine which form of undeath would prove superior. Nihilus struck with techniques that had destroyed Jedi enclaves and consumed entire planets' worth of force-sensitive life. Waves of draining power washed over Alucard, attempting to strip away the fundamental energy that animated him. But for every soul Nihilus consumed, 3 more emerged from Alucard's inexhaustible reserves. The vampire had drunk the blood of millions, absorbed an army's worth of life force, and every victim now served as a shield against the ancient Sith's hunger. "You've been alone too long," Alucard shouted over the psychic storm, "feeding on echoes, on ghosts, on the remnants of a battle that ended before I was even born. You've forgotten what it means to face something that fights back." His familiars swarmed Nihilus like locusts, each one a fragment of Alucard's power given semi-autonomous form. They tore at the ancient Sith's shadowy substance, not damaging him so much as contaminating him, introducing foreign consciousness into a being that had existed in isolation for thousands of years. Nihilus reeled, his unified presence fragmenting as Alucard's consumed souls began infecting his carefully maintained existence. For millennia, he had been singular, a hunger so pure it had transcended individual identity. Now he felt others within him, personalities, memories, wills that weren't his own, all carrying the taint of the vampire who had absorbed them. "What are you?" For the first time, Nihilus's voice carried something other than absolute certainty. "You are not Sith, not Jedi, not even of this galaxy." "I'm Alucard." The vampire reformed his physical body, standing before Nihilus with his perpetual smile intact despite the chunks missing from his form where the Sith Lords' attacks had landed. "I'm a monster from a universe where your precious force doesn't exist, where immortality is achieved through violence rather than mysticism, where predators like me learn to exist in the cracks between life and death." He walked forward, ignoring the draining aura that should have killed him instantly. "You wanted to understand me? Here's the lesson. I'm not trapped by my hunger. I am my hunger. Every soul I've consumed adds to what I am rather than diminishing me. You thought you were feeding on me." His laugh echoed through the chamber. "I've been feeding on you since the moment you attacked." Nihilus looked down at his tattered form and realized the truth. Portions of his shadowy substance had been consumed, absorbed into Alucard's being, not destroyed, incorporated. The vampire had taken pieces of the ancient Sith Lord and made them part of his own vast collection of souls. "Impossible! I am the hunger that ends all things. I have consumed worlds. And I've consumed you." Alucard's form exploded into shadow, enveloping Nihilus completely. "Not all of you. I'm not that greedy. But enough. Enough to understand what you are, how you function, what keeps you bound to this place." His voice came from everywhere simultaneously. "You need the thought bomb. It's the only thing anchoring you to reality after millennia of existing as pure hunger. Without it, you'd dissipate into the force you've spent so long consuming." The shadows retracted, revealing both Nihilus and Alucard standing before the thought bomb. The ancient Sith Lord was diminished, his form less substantial, cracks appearing in his bone mask where Alucard's assault had damaged his carefully maintained existence. "I could destroy you," Alucard said calmly. "Continue consuming until there's nothing left of Darth Nihilus except another voice in my collection, or..." He looked at the thought bomb, his expression becoming thoughtful. "I could offer you something better than destruction." "What could you possibly offer me?" Despite his weakened state, Nihilus's voice carried bitter pride. "I am beyond want, beyond need. There is only hunger. Freedom." The single word cut through the chamber like a blade. "Emperor Vitiat sent me here to retrieve the thought bomb or eliminate the threat it represents, but he didn't specify how I should accomplish either task." Alucard's smile became conspiratorial. What if I told you there's an entire galaxy out there full of Force-sensitive beings ripe for consumption? Jedi temples, Sith academies, entire planets where Force users gather in concentrations you can't even imagine. Nihilus went very still. You would release me? Not release, redirect. Alucard gestured to the thought bomb. I'll take this weapon back to the Emperor as requested, but you're not bound to the artifact itself, are you? You're bound to Malachor because the Force echoes here have sustained you for millennia. You've grown dependent on this planet's trauma. His eyes gleamed behind those orange glasses. But what if I gave you an alternative food source? What if I pointed you toward targets the Sith Empire would benefit from having removed? The Jedi. Understanding dawned in Nihilus's hollow voice. You would aim me at the Jedi Order. Among others, the galaxy is full of Force-sensitive factions, some allied with the Sith, some opposed, some independent. Imagine having access to all of them, freed from this dead world, able to hunt across the stars as you once did before Malachor became your prison. Alucard extended his hand. I'm offering you the same thing the Emperor offered me, purpose beyond simple survival, a war worth fighting, enemies worthy of your hunger. For a long moment, Nihilus simply stared at the offered hand. Thousands of years of isolation, of feeding on echoes and memories, of existing as a ghost bound to a single traumatized planet. And here stood a creature from beyond the galaxy, offering liberation in exchange for what? Service? Alliance? What do you gain from this? Entertainment, chaos, the satisfaction of watching the Jedi Order scramble to defend against a threat they thought long dead. Alucard's smile widened, and perhaps eventually a worthy opponent. You're diminished now, weakened by our battle, but given time, given proper feeding, you could become something truly dangerous, something that might actually pose a challenge. You want me to become strong enough to threaten you. I need you to become that strong. Because I'm tired of fights that end too quickly, I want enemies that push me, that force me to evolve, that make existence interesting rather than just endless. The vampire's expression became almost vulnerable. I've been alone with my power for too long, Darth Nihilus, just as you have. Perhaps it's time we both had proper adversaries. Nihilus reached out, his tattered hand clasping Alucard's. The moment of contact created a resonance. Two beings who existed outside normal life and death, each one recognizing in the other a kindred isolation, a shared understanding that transcended mere alliance or enmity. Very well, vampire. I will accept your partnership, but know this, when I have fed sufficiently, when I have reclaimed my full power, I will test whether you truly desire such a challenge. I'm counting on it. Alucard released the ancient Sith's hand and turned to the thought bomb. He extended his shadow toward it, carefully wrapping the artifact in darkness that insulated him from its draining properties. But first, let's get you off this rock. I know several Jedi outposts that have been growing uncomfortably confident lately. They could use a reminder that the old threats never truly die. The vampire lifted the thought bomb, its weight somehow both physical and metaphysical, and began ascending through the layers of rock he'd fallen through. Behind him, Darth Nihilus followed, his form more substantial now, as if the promise of freedom had given him renewed purpose. They emerged onto Malachor's surface to find the Force echoes had ceased their attacks. The ghostly battles still played out endlessly across the landscape, but they no longer converged on Alucard's position. Without Nihilus directing them, they returned to their eternal repetition, tragic, trapped, but no longer actively hostile. They will remain here. Nihilus looked across the battlefield of ghosts with something approaching regret. Bound by the moment of their deaths, some prisons cannot be escaped, even by those who have transcended death. Then let's ensure we don't end up joining them. Alucard led the way to his ship, the thought bomb secured in a containment field he'd improvised from the vessel's cargo hold. The Emperor will be pleased I retrieved his weapon. He'll be less pleased I allowed you to leave Malachor, but he smiled. I never promised to eliminate every threat. Just to complete the mission. As the ship lifted off, leaving the dead world behind, Darth Nihilus stood at the viewport beside Alucard, watching Malachor shrink into the distance. You are either the wisest fool I have encountered, or the most dangerous ally the Sith Empire has ever claimed. Why not both? Alucard set the coordinates for Dromund Kaas, knowing the conversation that awaited him with Emperor Vichiat would be interesting. The best monsters are the ones who can think beyond their next meal. You taught me that today, even if you didn't intend to. The ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying 2 immortal predators toward a galaxy unprepared for either of them. Back on Malachor 5th, in the expedition's abandoned base camp, one of the Sith archaeologist's datapads flickered to life. Its final entry, written in shaking letters moments before the author's death, contained a warning that would never be read. We found the thought bomb, we found Nihilus, but something else arrived, something from beyond our understanding. If anyone receives this message, do not send more expeditions, do not attempt recovery. Some dead things are better left buried, and some monsters should remain in their own nightmares. We have failed. May the Force forgive us for what we have awakened. The datapad's power died, leaving the message unread, the warning unheeded. The first Sith vampire had completed his mission and forged an alliance that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of power, death, and the eternal hunger that drove both. Emperor Vichiat would receive his thought bomb, but in doing so, he had unleashed something far more dangerous than an ancient weapon. He had given Alucard purpose, and worse, he had given him a rival. The old Republic would never be the same. The Sith Empire's throne room fell into absolute silence as Alucard placed the thought bomb before Emperor Vichiat. The artifact pulsed with compressed darkness, its presence causing even the Dark Council members to instinctively step back. Centuries of accumulated death, thousands of Force-sensitive souls stripped away in a single catastrophic moment, all contained within a sphere barely 2 meters in diameter. You have succeeded, Emperor Vichiat observed, his masked face studying both the weapon and the vampire who had delivered it. The thought bomb is intact. More importantly, you return, having survived Malachor 5's particular brand of madness. Few can claim such an accomplishment. I had help, Alucard said with his characteristic smile. Or rather, I made a new friend. One who shares my appreciation for the finer points of immortality and hunger. The Emperor's presence intensified. Darth Nihilus. You knew he survived? Darth Marr's voice carried a note of accusation. You sent the vampire knowing that ancient threat still existed on Malachor? I suspected. Vichiat's tone remained neutral. What better test of our new asset than to face a being who represents the ultimate conclusion of darkside consumption? If Alucard fell to Nihilus, we would have eliminated an unpredictable variable. If Nihilus fell to Alucard, we would have removed an ancient threat. And if neither occurred, the Emperor's attention fixed entirely on the vampire. Then we would learn something far more valuable. Alucard's smile widened. And what did you learn, Emperor? That you are precisely what I hoped you would be, a weapon capable of independent thought, strategic planning, and most dangerously, the ability to forge alliances that serve your interests while appearing to serve mine. Vichiat stood from his throne, his presence expanding to fill the chamber. Darth Nihilus now hunts in my empire's territory. Where is he? Hunting Jedi, as I suggested. There's a small enclave on Dantooine, too insignificant for the Empire to bother with, but perfect for someone rebuilding their strength. Alucard's expression became almost challenging. Unless you'd prefer I track him down and finish what we started on Malachor, though I should warn you that might take several years and require resources you'd probably rather allocate elsewhere. The Dark Council members exchanged glances. This creature, this thing they had summoned from another universe, was openly admitting to releasing one of the most dangerous Sith Lords in history. By all rights, he should be executed immediately for such insubordination. Emperor Vitiat began to laugh. It was a sound few had ever heard. Cold, genuinely amused, carrying the weight of over 1,000 years of existence. You understand the game, vampire. Power is not simply about strength, but about creating situations where all outcomes serve your purposes. He returned to his throne, his posture suggesting satisfaction. Very well, Darth Nihilus will serve as an additional destabilizing force against the Jedi Order, and you, Alucard, will continue as my independent agent, with the understanding that I am now watching to see whether you become an asset or a liability. Fair enough. Alucard bowed with theatrical flourish. I live to entertain, after all, or rather I unlive to entertain. The terminology gets confusing. Darth Vowron stepped forward, her expression carrying something between admiration and concern. The vampire has proven himself valuable, my lord, but his methods are unconventional. Perhaps we should establish clearer parameters for his operations? No. The Emperor's tone was absolute. Alucard functions best without rigid constraints. We learned that at Ossus, give him a mission and basic parameters, and he will accomplish objectives through means we would never consider. His masked gaze swept across the council. The Sith Empire has survived for millennia through adaptability. This creature represents a new form of power, one we must learn to utilize or risk being left behind by our enemies who might do so first. The meeting concluded with Alucard being assigned quarters within the Citadel, a courtesy extended to few non-Sith, and a clear message that the Empire considered him valuable enough to keep close. As he departed, accompanied by guards who looked deeply uncomfortable with their assignment, Darth Mar approached the Emperor. This is dangerous, my lord. We have essentially given an immortal predator free rein within our empire. Yes, Vitiate agreed. But consider the alternative. If we attempted to control him completely, he would either rebel or become useless, a mindless weapon rather than a thinking asset. This way, he believes he has freedom while remaining dependent on the Empire for purpose and direction. The Emperor's attention turned to the thought bomb. And should he ever truly threaten us, we now possess a weapon specifically designed to destroy Force-sensitive beings. One wonders how it might affect a creature sustained by consumed souls. In his quarters, Alucard stood at the window overlooking Dromund Kaas's perpetual storms. Lightning arced between clouds, painting the jungle below in stark flashes of white and purple. It reminded him of London during the Blitz. Beautiful, terrible, full of possibility. He had found his purpose in this new galaxy, not simple destruction, but something more nuanced. He would serve the Sith Empire as he had served Hellsing, as a monster on a carefully calibrated leash, aimed at targets that deserved everything he could inflict. And when the leash grew too tight, when the Empire forgot that weapons with minds of their own could make independent decisions, well, that would be entertaining in its own way. Somewhere in the galaxy, Darth Nihilus descended on a Jedi enclave, his hunger finally unleashed after millennia of starvation. The Jedi there would fight, would call upon the light side, would believe their training and conviction would save them. They would be wrong. The galaxy had changed in ways neither Jedi nor Sith fully understood. Two immortal predators now hunted among the stars, one serving the Empire openly, the other serving his own hunger while pretending alliance. Both were anomalies, violations of natural law, creatures that existed because something had gone terribly wrong in the fabric of reality. The Jedi would call them abominations. The Sith would call them weapons. The truth was simpler and more terrifying. They were survivors of different forms of death, and in this galaxy of light and dark, they represented a third path, the path of eternal hunger. And the Old Republic, with all its Force users and ancient conflicts, had just become their hunting ground.